On a freezing winter night, a U.S. Army captain slammed on his brakes in the middle of an empty highway because, through the storm, he saw something that should have been impossible. A bride. She sat alone in the snow, still wearing her wedding dress, shivering, terrified, and trapped in her wheelchair. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks, her lips turning blue from the cold. The captain ran toward her with his loyal dog charging beside him, barking sharply, as if warning him of danger. The bride looked up, confusion and fear fighting in her eyes. Why was she alone in the storm? Who left her like this? And why did the dog suddenly stop, growl, and stand protectively in front of her? When Captain Aaron lifted the trembling bride into his truck, she clutched his sleeve with frozen fingers and whispered, "Please, don't call anyone. They'll kill me if they find me." He didn't know who they were. He didn't know she was a billionaire. He didn't know saving her would ignite a chain of events involving danger, betrayal, gratitude, and a fortune beyond imagination. And neither Aaron nor his loyal K9 partner, Shadow, were prepared for how this mysterious woman would rewrite their fate forever. Stay with us. This amazing story will leave you speechless. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button and let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The snowstorm had swallowed the entire highway, turning everything into a blur of white. Captain Aaron Miller tightened his grip on the steering wheel as the wind slammed against his truck, pushing it sideways. His K9 partner, Shadow, sat alert in the passenger seat, ears twitching at every sound. They were supposed to be heading back to base after a 2-day rescue training assignment, but the storm had other plans. The visibility was barely a few feet, and the temperature was dropping fast. It felt like the kind of night where bad news waited quietly on the roadside. Shadow suddenly let out a low growl. Aaron glanced at him. "What is it, boy?" he asked. Shadow didn't blink. He just stared straight ahead, nose pointed toward the swirling snow. Aaron slowed the truck. His instincts sharpened. Shadow never reacted without a reason. As the snow thinned for a split second, Aaron's eyes caught something. A small figure on the right side of the road. At first, he thought it was a fallen tree branch or a pile of snow, but then the figure moved, or rather, trembled. Aaron's heart kicked into gear. Someone was out there. He pulled over and grabbed his flashlight. The cold slapped his face the moment he stepped out. Shadow leapt down beside him, sniffing the air with urgent focus. Aaron walked forward, boots sinking into deep snow until the shape became clear. And then the sight hit him like a shock. A woman, in a white wedding dress, sitting in a wheelchair. Her lips were blue, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as she shivered uncontrollably. Snowflakes clung to her hair like frozen tears. Aaron's breath caught. She looked like she had been sitting there for hours. "Ma'am," he called out, rushing toward her, "can you hear me?" She lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were full of fear so sharp it felt like a warning. Shadow circled her once, then stopped beside her, tail stiff, body alert. Even he sensed something wasn't right. Aaron knelt beside her. "What happened? Are you hurt? Why are you out here alone?" Her voice trembled as she tried to speak, but nothing clear came out, just broken whispers lost in the wind. Aaron glanced around the empty road. No cars, no tracks, no signs of another soul. Only her. Lost, frozen, terrified, and somehow left behind. Aaron swallowed hard. This wasn't just a rescue. This was the beginning of something much bigger. He could feel it in his bones. Aaron opened the truck door and carefully lifted the trembling bride into the warm cabin. Her dress was soaked, stiff from the cold, and her fingers were icy to the touch. Shadow climbed into the back seat, but he didn't relax. His eyes stayed locked on her every move, his instincts buzzing with something Aaron couldn't yet understand. Aaron turned up the heater and pulled a thermal blanket over her shoulders. "You're safe now," he assured gently. But the woman only stared ahead, breathing fast like every second was a threat. For a moment, the only sound inside the truck was the storm pounding on the roof. Then Aaron spoke again, softer this time. "Can you tell me your name?" She shook her head quickly, too quickly. Her reaction wasn't just fear. It was panic, as if saying her name would put her in danger. Aaron felt a twist in his chest. Something was seriously wrong. Shadow suddenly leaned forward, sniffing her wrist. The woman jerked back, eyes wide. Her fear wasn't of the dog. It was something deeper, something she was hiding. Shadow didn't bite or growl. He simply let out a soft whine, confused but alert. Aaron had seen Shadow react to trauma victims before, but never like this. "Hey," Aaron tried again. "I'm not the police. I just want to help. You're freezing. Do you know where you came from? Was there an accident?" Her lips parted, but again, no clear words came through. Just a faint whisper, almost like a plea. But then she shook her head again, tears streaming down her cheeks. Aaron noticed her wrists. Slight bruises. Faint, but there. He noticed her dress too, torn at one side like someone had grabbed her. She clutched the blanket tighter when she saw him looking. That confirmed it. She wasn't just lost, she was running from something. Or someone. "Listen," Aaron said, voice steady. "I'm a U.S. Army captain. You don't have to be scared of me." He showed her his ID. She looked at it, and a flicker of relief crossed her face. But it disappeared just as quickly, replaced by a strange sadness, as if she wished he had never found her. Shadow lifted his head, ears pricked. The dog sensed something outside, something Aaron couldn't hear yet. But her reaction told him everything. She flinched, shrinking into the seat, gripping the blanket like it was her last shield. Aaron followed her gaze out the fogged-up window. Nothing. Just snow and darkness. But her fear was too real to ignore. He turned back to her. "Whoever you're afraid of, they can't reach you now. Not while I'm here." The woman squeezed her eyes shut. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Finally, in a shaky breath, she whispered one small sentence. "Please, don't let them find me." Aaron felt his stomach tense. Shadow growled low under his breath. The storm outside suddenly felt much colder. This wasn't just a stranded bride. This was a woman running for her life. Aaron's heart tightened at her whispered words. He leaned closer, keeping his voice calm and steady. "You're safe with me. I promise." But the bride shook her head again, biting her lip as if she didn't believe safety existed anywhere anymore. Shadow shifted restlessly in the back seat. The dog's eyes locked on her trembling hands. He let out a soft, uneasy whine, sensing her terror the way only trained canines could. Aaron knew Shadow wasn't just reacting to fear. He sensed danger, real danger, somewhere close. Aaron exhaled slowly. "Listen," he said, "we can't stay on this road. This storm will swallow us whole." He waited for even a small response, but she just stared at the windshield, frozen like a statue made of fear. He tried again. "Do you have a phone? Anyone I can call for you?" The woman clutched the blanket tighter. "No, no phone," she whispered, voice cracking. "Please, don't call anyone." Her words struck him. Not, "I don't want help," but "don't call anyone." It confirmed what Aaron already suspected. Someone dangerous was out there, and she didn't want them alerted. Shadow suddenly pressed his paws against the window, growling at the empty road. Aaron looked outside, nothing but snow, but he trusted Shadow more than his own eyes. "Ma'am, someone was chasing you, right?" Aaron asked quietly. Her breath hitched. She didn't speak, but that tiny reaction was enough. She was hiding something, something that terrified her more than being stranded in a deadly storm. Aaron softened his tone even more. "I'm not asking to judge you. I'm asking because I need to know how to protect you." She slowly turned her head toward him, eyes glossy with panic. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I can't walk, I can't run, I can't go back. Her voice trembled like she had been holding her fear in for hours, maybe days. Aaron nodded gently. Okay, then we're not going back. We're getting you somewhere safe. But she suddenly grabbed his sleeve, surprising him with her strength. Please, she said, desperation flooding her voice. They'll kill me if they find me. Shadow's growl deepened, vibrating through the truck like an alarm. Aaron placed a steady hand over hers. Not tonight, he said. Not while I'm here. The woman looked at him with pleading, broken eyes that carried stories she wasn't ready to tell. And in that moment, Aaron realized something. This wasn't just a rescue. This was a race against whoever was hunting her, and against time itself. He started the engine, but his gut tightened. Whatever she was running from wasn't far behind. Aaron eased the truck back onto the road, but his mind wasn't calm. Shadow stayed glued to the window, tail stiff, ears pointed like arrows toward danger. The woman clutched the blanket, shivering, not just from the cold, but from whatever nightmare she had escaped. A few minutes later, the storm cleared just enough for Aaron to spot something through the swirling snow, a dark shape on the side of the road. At first, he thought it was another stranded vehicle, but as they drove closer, the details became chillingly clear. A luxury black SUV, engine still warm, driver's door hanging open, and the most disturbing part, both rear tires were blown out, shot clean through. Aaron slowed to a stop. Every instinct told him this wasn't a coincidence. Shadow growled low, pressing his nose to the glass. The bride froze, eyes widening with horror the moment she recognized the vehicle. Her trembling hands flew to her mouth. No, 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 she whispered, shaking her head violently. Please, just go. Please. Aaron studied the SUV, expensive, armored, tinted windows. Someone important had been in that car, or someone heavily guarded. He stepped out cautiously, flashlight in hand. Snow whipped across his face, but he forced himself forward. The ground around the SUV was full of footprints, fresh ones leading into the woods. Someone had been here minutes ago. He scanned the inside of the car through the open door. The leather seats were slashed. A purse lay on the floorboard, its contents scattered. A phone, screen cracked. A bouquet of crushed white roses soaked in melting snow. But something else made Aaron's stomach twist. A broken wedding veil caught on the door hinge, identical to the one the woman was wearing. He hurried back to the truck and opened the door. "Is this your car?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence screamed the truth. Her eyes filled with tears that refused to fall. She turned away, gripping the blanket like her life depended on it. "Tell me what happened," Aaron urged gently. She shook her head. I can't. They'll hurt you too." Aaron exhaled sharply. "Ma'am, I've seen ambushes. I've seen traps. That SUV didn't end up like that on its own. Someone targeted it, and they targeted you." Her breathing quickened. "I shouldn't have run. I shouldn't have escaped." Shadow suddenly barked, loud and sharp. Aaron whipped his head toward the woods. A shadow moved between the trees. Tall, slow, watching. Adrenaline punched through his chest. They weren't alone. He jumped back into the truck. "We're leaving. Now." The woman grabbed his arm, voice cracking. "Please, don't let them take me back." Aaron met her terrified eyes. "I won't." He floored the accelerator. Snow exploded behind them as they sped away from the SUV. But the truth was now undeniable. Someone had tried to take her. Someone had shot out the tires. Someone was still out there. And they weren't giving up. The truck sped down the icy highway, but the tension inside felt heavier than the storm outside. The bride kept her head low, gripping the blanket with trembling fingers. Her breaths came fast and uneven. Shadow, meanwhile, refused to sit. He stood on all fours, staring out the back window as if he expected something to appear at any moment. Aaron checked the rearview mirror. Nothing but darkness and falling snow. But Shadow's instincts were rarely wrong. Shadow sees something, Aaron muttered quietly. The bride squeezed her eyes shut. They're following, she whispered, voice barely audible. They never stop. Aaron frowned. Who are they? She didn't answer. Instead, she let out a small sob, covering her mouth to keep the sound inside. Whatever she had escaped from, it wasn't just danger, it was terror. The storm thinned again, just long enough for Aaron to see the tree line running parallel to the road, and then his stomach clenched. Between the trees, barely visible in the swirling snow, a dark figure was moving, fast, keeping pace with the truck. That wasn't possible, unless someone knew exactly where she was going. Shadow barked sharply, jumping toward Aaron's seat. His message was clear. They were not alone. Aaron pressed harder on the gas. You need to trust me, he told the woman gently. If someone is after you, I need to know what's going on. She shook her head aggressively. If I tell you, you'll want to leave me. Everyone leaves. Aaron's jaw tightened. I'm not everyone. Her tears finally spilled. You don't understand. They'll hurt anyone who helps me. Shadow's growl rumbled deeper, vibrating through the entire truck. He wasn't growling at her. He was growling at whatever was out there. Aaron's eyes shifted back to the mirror. Nothing visible now, but the sense of being watched clung to him like cold sweat. Suddenly, the bride leaned forward, as if she felt something too. Don't go straight. They know the highway, she whispered urgently. Take the old road, the one that curves left. Aaron blinked. How do you know that road? She hesitated. Because they used it. They said, no one goes there in storms. That was enough for Aaron. He didn't hesitate. He turned the wheel sharply, guiding the truck onto the old, narrow road leading into the woods. The path was rough, barely visible under the thick snow. But it put distance between them and whoever might be following. For a moment, silence filled the cabin, just the sound of snow hitting the windshield. Then Shadow stiffened. A loud snap echoed from somewhere in the woods, like a branch breaking under a heavy foot. The bride gasped. They found us! Aaron gripped the wheel harder, his heartbeat hammered against his ribs. Not yet, he said firmly. They won't get near you. Not while Shadow and I are here. But deep inside, he knew the truth. Whatever was in those woods wasn't stopping. This wasn't over. This was only the beginning. The truck bounced along the narrow forest road, its tires crunching through fresh snow. Tall trees surrounded them like silent guards, their branches bending under the storm's weight. Inside the cabin, the air felt tight, too tight. The bride sat curled against the door, breathing shakily, while Shadow stayed alert, watching her like he understood she was hiding more than fear. Aaron glanced at her gently. Look, I don't need your whole story, but I need something, even your name. She hesitated, staring at her hands, as if even her name was dangerous. Finally, in a soft, trembling voice, she whispered, My name is Lila. Aaron nodded. Okay, Lila. That's a start. But the moment he said her name aloud, something strange happened. Her shoulders stiffened, her eyes darted to the window, and her breathing quickened. It was like hearing her own name was a reminder of the chaos she was escaping. Shadow tilted his head, sensing the shift in her energy. Aaron softened his tone. Your full name, does it put you in danger? Lila swallowed hard. It puts everyone in danger. Those words hit Aaron like a punch. Not herself, but everyone around her. That meant whoever was after her wasn't just after money or revenge. This was bigger. Lila, he said quietly, I've served in some bad places. I've seen people run from things that wanted to destroy them, but I've never seen someone this scared of saying their own name. She wiped her tears with shaking fingers. "You don't understand. I wasn't supposed to escape. I wasn't supposed to be alive." Shadow let out a single low bark, almost like he agreed. Aaron slowed the truck. "Tell me this much. Are you wanted by the police, or are you being hunted by criminals?" She looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. "Criminals. Not just criminals. Powerful people." Aaron's grip tightened on the steering wheel. She continued, voice fragile. "I wasn't kidnapped for ransom. I was taken because of who I am, because of what I own." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" Her lips trembled. "More than you can imagine." The truck fell silent. Shadow stared at her as if trying to read her soul. Aaron took a deep breath. "Lila, whatever you're hiding, it's already chasing you. Letting me in won't make it worse." She squeezed her eyes shut. "You say that now. But when you know the truth, you might wish you never found me." The storm outside roared louder, almost as if echoing her warning. But Aaron didn't look away from her. "Try me," he said. Lila finally looked up, fearful, broken, and Aaron realized he wasn't just rescuing a bride. He was stepping into a world he didn't understand, and one she was terrified to reveal. The old forest road twisted deeper into the woods, guiding Aaron toward the ranger cabin he remembered from past rescue missions. It wasn't much, just a small wooden shelter used during wildlife patrols, but it was safer than the storm-beaten highway. More importantly, it was hidden. Leela clutched the blanket tighter as the truck slowed to a stop. The cabin stood silent under the heavy snow, half covered, its windows frosted and dark. Shadow leapt out first, sniffing the air sharply, tail rigid. Aaron helped Lila into the cabin, lifting her gently from the truck and carrying her inside. The moment they stepped in, warm memories of past missions flickered in his mind, but this time felt different. The air inside was still, but not peaceful, almost like the place itself was holding its breath. Lila's voice trembled. "Do you think they followed us?" Aaron locked the door behind them. "Not if we're lucky. This place is hidden." Shadow patted around the room, sniffing corners, checking windows, pacing with restless energy. His behavior was a warning Aaron had learned never to ignore. The cabin was small, just a table, a few chairs, a wood stove, and an emergency cot. Aaron placed Lila on the cot and covered her with another blanket he found in the supply box. "Try to breathe," he said gently. "You're safe for now." Lila shook her head. "Safe doesn't exist for me." He crouched down beside her. "It does tonight." But before he could say anything else, Shadow froze near the door, ears sharp, body stiff as stone. He growled, a deep rumbling sound that sent chills through the cabin. Aaron stood immediately. "What is it, boy?" Another growl. Louder, then a sound outside, a faint crunch of snow. Slow, deliberate. Someone was walking. Someone heavy. Lila's eyes widened in terror. No, they found us." Aaron quickly turned off the lantern, plunging the room into darkness except for the dim glow of the snow outside. He moved to the window, peering through the edge of the curtain. Shadows, 3 of them, moving between the trees, spreading out like predators closing in. Aaron's pulse pounded. These weren't lost hikers. These were the same people who had attacked the SUV. They had followed the tracks, maybe even the tire marks. And now they were here. Shadow barked sharply, lunging toward the door. "Quiet," Aaron whispered, pulling him back. But it was too late. The shadows outside stopped. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Then, bang! A powerful hit slammed into the front door, shaking the entire cabin. Lila screamed. Aaron grabbed the emergency fire poker from beside the stove. A weak weapon, but better than nothing. He pressed Lila behind the cot. "Stay down, no matter what happens." Shadow positioned himself in front of Aaron, teeth bared, ready to die if he had to. Another hit. Another. The old wooden door cracked at the hinges. Aaron's breath steadied. His military instincts kicked in. Whoever was out there wasn't leaving without her, and he wasn't letting them in. The door crashed again, half splintered now. Shadow lunged forward. Aaron braced himself. The attackers were seconds away from breaking in, and the real fight was just about to begin. The moment the door split open, cold wind rushed into the cabin like a scream. A masked man shoved his arm through the crack, trying to force it wider. Aaron didn't hesitate. He swung the iron poker hard. The blow connected with a sickening thud, and the attacker stumbled back. But there were more. 2 more shadows lunged toward the doorframe. Shadow reacted before Aaron could even shout his name. With a powerful snarl, the dog charged, slamming his full weight against the broken door. The attackers recoiled, startled that a K9 was inside. "Good boy, again," Aaron shouted. Shadow didn't need commands. His instincts took over. He leapt through the gap, jaws snapping with military precision. One attacker screamed as Shadow bit down on his arm, forcing him into the snow. The second man swung a metal bar toward the dog. "Shadow, move!" Aaron yelled. Shadow released the first attacker and dodged just in time, the bar slicing through empty air instead of his skull. In the same movement, he lunged again, tackling the second man to the ground. Snow flew everywhere as they struggled. Aaron rushed out behind him, landing a punch on the third attacker who'd tried to circle the cabin. The man fell back, but he was bigger, stronger. He grabbed Aaron's jacket, trying to pin him. Inside the cabin, Lila covered her ears, trembling violently. She couldn't walk. She couldn't run. All she could do was watch the battle happening in the doorway, frozen, helpless. One attacker broke free and sprinted toward her, shouting, "Get the girl!" Lila screamed. Aaron's heart dropped. "Shadow!" Shadow heard her cry. In an instant, he tore himself away from the fight outside and barreled back through the broken door, teeth bared, claws scraping across the wooden floor. The attacker reached for Lila. Shadow collided with him before he could touch her, biting down on his leg with fierce, unrelenting force. The man howled, collapsing. Shadow stood over him, snarling, daring him to move. Aaron rushed in and kicked the metal bar away from the attacker's hand. With one swift strike of the poker, the man went unconscious. The other 2 attackers fled into the trees, limping, defeated, realizing they were no match for a trained Army K9 and a furious captain. The woods fell silent again. For a moment, all Aaron heard was Lila's sobs and Shadow's heavy breathing. The dog walked up to her and gently nuzzled her arm as if assuring her, "You're safe. I'm here." Aaron locked the door as best as he could. Snow blew through the broken frame, but the danger had passed, for now. He knelt beside Lila. "We can't stay here anymore." Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Shadow. He saved my life." Aaron looked at his brave partner. "He's not done saving it yet." Snow drifted through the cracked doorway as Aaron helped Lila sit upright. Her breathing was uneven, her eyes swollen from crying, but the fear inside them had shifted. It wasn't just terror anymore. It was the weight of secrets she could no longer carry. Shadow lay beside her, panting, keeping guard. Every few seconds he'd glance at the door, making sure no one returned. His loyalty wrapped around the room like a shield. Aaron knelt in front of Lila. "They didn't come after you for nothing," he said quietly. "You have to tell me the truth now. All of it." Lila wiped her trembling fingers across her cheeks. "You'll think I'm lying." "Try me," Aaron said simply. For a long moment she stared at the wooden floor. Then she inhaled shakily. "My full name is Lila Everton." Aaron blinked. The name sounded familiar. Too familiar. Shadow even tilted his head, as if sensing the significance. Lila continued, voice barely above a whisper. "My family owns half of Everton Holdings, the biggest private investment company in the country." Aaron froze. Everton Holdings wasn't just big, it was monumental, billionaire level, global influence, headlines, power, and then it clicked. The luxury SUV, the wedding dress, the men chasing her, everything crashed together like pieces of a puzzle he didn't want to believe. You're the heiress, he murmured. Lila nodded slowly. I was supposed to get married today. A private ceremony. Small. Safe. Her lips trembled. But someone inside the event staff betrayed me. They drugged the driver. They took control of the SUV. And when I woke up, we weren't headed to the church anymore. Aaron felt cold crawl up his spine. They said my father would pay anything to get me back alive, Lila whispered. And if he didn't, they had other plans. He clenched his jaw. And the wheelchair. She hesitated, then looked down at her legs. I've been paralyzed for 2 years. Car accident. A tear fell. People think too much money makes you untouchable, but all it makes you is a target. Aaron's chest tightened. This wasn't just danger. This was a full-scale kidnapping operation. Lila continued, voice cracking. When the SUV crashed, I managed to unbuckle myself. I crawled out into the snow. They weren't expecting me to run, but I did, until I couldn't move anymore. Shadow nudged her knee gently as if comforting her. Aaron exhaled deeply. Lila, listen to me. You're not alone now, and whoever's after you, they're not touching you again, not while Shadow and I are breathing. But Lila's eyes filled with fresh fear. They're not giving up. They want me alive, and they'll keep coming. Outside, the storm howled louder, as if echoing her warning. Aaron stood, determination hardening in his eyes. Then we'll stay ahead of them. Shadow growled low, promise. Not a threat. For the first time, Lila met both of their eyes without looking away. They saved me, she whispered. She was starting to believe she might actually survive this. Aaron paced the small cabin, mind racing. The snowstorm outside was worsening, each gust of wind striking the walls like a warning. Lila watched him with fearful eyes, her hands shaking despite the blankets wrapped around her. Shadow sat in front of the broken door, guarding it like a soldier who knew the night wasn't done testing them. Aaron stopped pacing. Lila. Those men weren't amateurs. They weren't petty criminals. They were trained. He paused, and they knew exactly who they were after. Lila lowered her gaze. Because there's a price on me. Aaron felt his stomach tighten. A ransom? She nodded slowly. But not just money. They wanted control. My father's company. It holds billions in international contracts. Whoever controls me, controls everything. Shadow growled softly at her trembling voice, almost as if offering comfort. Aaron knelt beside her. So they needed you alive. Yes, she whispered. Alive, but hidden. They planned to fake a disappearance, a long kidnapping, maybe months, maybe longer. Her voice cracked. My family would have done anything, paid anything, to get me back. Aaron clenched his fists. He'd seen greed before, but this was something darker. And if the ransom wasn't paid? Lila swallowed hard. They said I'd eventually become a problem to be removed. The room fell silent. Shadow lifted his head, ears pointed sharply, reacting to her fear. Aaron breathed out slowly. Lila, you need to understand something. Those men weren't acting alone. Someone with serious inside access had to coordinate this. Someone who knew your route, your wedding schedule, your guards. Lila's eyes filled with fresh panic. You think someone close to me planned it? Aaron didn't sugarcoat. It's possible, maybe even likely. Tears slid down her cheeks. I trusted everyone today, and still they got to me. Aaron gently placed a hand on her shoulder. That's how organized kidnappers work. They wait for the moment you feel safest. Lila shivered, pulling the blanket closer. I thought my wedding day would be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it almost became my last. Shadow suddenly stood, muscles tense. He sniffed the air sharply, tail stiff as a board. Aaron followed Shadow's gaze toward the window. "What is it, boy?" he whispered. A moment later, he saw it too. Headlights. Faint, distant, but moving toward the cabin. Lila gasped. "They found us again." Aaron's jaw hardened. "If it's them, they're getting nothing but a fight." Shadow growled, ready. The price on Lila's life wasn't just a number. It was a storm chasing them through the night. And it was. Closing in fast, Aaron blew out the lantern instantly, plunging the cabin into cold darkness. The only light came from the faint glow of the storm outside. Lila held her breath, gripping the edge of the cot with trembling fingers. Shadow leaned forward, muscles coiled tight, ready to spring. The headlights grew brighter. Then they stopped. The engine shut off. Silence fell, the kind of silence that meant danger was walking on its toes. Aaron whispered sharply, "We're leaving. Now." He helped Lila into his arms again, lifting her with the urgency of a man who knew time was disappearing fast. Shadow stayed glued to the door, waiting for Aaron's signal. The storm slammed into them as they stepped outside. The cold stung their skin instantly, and the snow was knee-deep. Aaron held Lila tightly, shielding her from the wind. Shadow sprinted ahead, scanning the shadows with sharp, trained eyes. Near the tree line, a dark SUV sat half-hidden behind the branches. Aaron didn't need to see the men inside to know exactly who they were. He whispered, "Go, Shadow." Shadow bolted toward the truck, jumping in before Aaron even reached it. Aaron pulled open the door, placed Lila gently inside, then slammed it shut and jumped behind the wheel. He didn't bother turning on the headlights. He needed speed, not visibility. The truck roared to life. Just then, the SUV's doors burst open. 3 figures spilled out, armed and moving fast. "Hold on," Aaron shouted. The tires spun for a second on the icy ground, then caught traction. The truck shot forward onto the narrow road. Gunshots exploded behind them. Lila screamed. Shadow barked furiously, pressing against the back window. Aaron swerved as bullets skimmed off the rear bumper. One shattered the side mirror. Another lodged in the back door. "Shadow, down!" Aaron commanded. Shadow instantly dropped to the floor, trained to survive. The forest road twisted wildly, barely visible under the snow. Aaron fought the wheel, forcing the truck around the corners as the storm screamed around them. The SUV revved behind them, faster, heavier, pushing through the snow like a predator hunting prey. Lila clutched the seat, her breath shallow. "They won't stop. They won't stop," she whispered. Aaron's voice remained steady, even as adrenaline surged through him. "They'll stop tonight." The road suddenly opened onto the frozen highway, a massive sheet of ice coated in fresh snow. It was risky, but staying on the forest path meant certain capture. Aaron yanked the wheel, skidding onto the open road. The truck fishtailed dangerously. Lila let out a terrified cry. Shadow scrambled but stayed balanced, instinctively bracing himself. Aaron straightened the wheel, heart pounding. "It's okay. We're good." But they weren't. The SUV burst out of the trees behind them, headlights blazing like angry eyes. It was gaining fast. Aaron gritted his teeth. "They're too heavy. They'll slide on the ice before we do. We just need distance." But the SUV wasn't slowing. Whoever was driving knew exactly how to handle icy terrain. Lila clutched Aaron's jacket, voice trembling. "Why won't they stop? Why are they risking everything?" "Because you're worth everything," Aaron said without looking away from the road. Shadow barked sharply. Warning. Aaron looked ahead. A fallen tree blocked half the highway. They were seconds away from hitting it. Aaron slammed the brakes, jerking the truck into a controlled skid. The back of the truck swung sideways, the tires screaming against the ice. The SUV behind them did the same, but far less gracefully. Its heavy frame lost control, skidding wildly, spinning across the highway. Aaron seized the opening. He floored the gas. The truck shot forward, slipping past the fallen tree at the last possible second. Behind them, the SUV crashed hard into the ditch, metal crunching violently. Silence followed. Lila gasped, tears running down her cheeks. Shadow crawled up onto the seat, nuzzling her hand. Aaron didn't celebrate. He just stared into the dark highway ahead and exhaled shakily. "That won us time," he said, "not safety." The chase wasn't over, but they had survived the night's deadliest moment, and the storm still had more to reveal. The truck sped down the frozen highway, its tires fighting every inch of ice beneath them. Aaron's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his eyes scanning the storm-covered road for anything that might threaten them next. Lila sat slumped against the seat, her breaths shallow, her skin pale as moonlight. Shadow sensed it first. He placed his paws on the center console, whining softly, nudging Lila's arm. When she didn't respond, he barked, a sharp, urgent sound Aaron had rarely heard from him. Aaron glanced over. "Lila! Hey, stay with me." But she didn't lift her head. Her eyelids fluttered weakly, her lips trembling with every uneven breath. Panic shot through Aaron's chest. "Lila, talk to me." She opened her mouth, but only a faint whisper escaped. "Cold. So cold." Shadow whimpered, nudging her again. Aaron cursed under his breath. The storm had drained her strength, the attack had shocked her system, and the chase had left her barely hanging on. He turned up the heat, pulling the blanket tighter around her. "You're going to be okay," he said, though fear pulled at every word. Lila's voice suddenly cracked. "Aaron, stop the truck." "No," he said instantly. "We can't risk." "Please," she whispered, barely audible. I need to tell you something." Aaron reluctantly slowed the vehicle, pulling to the side where thick snow muffled the world. Shadow crawled onto Lila's lap, licking her cold hands, trying to keep her awake. Aaron leaned closer. "What is it?" Lila swallowed, painfully. There's something you don't know, something I kept hidden in case I never made it." Aaron's heart pounded. "Lila, don't talk like that. You're not dying." But she shook her head slowly. "I heard the men talking, before the SUV crashed." Her eyes glistened with fear and exhaustion. "They weren't just after money. They were after my inheritance. I recently became the majority owner. My father gave me control of everything." Aaron froze. So that was it. Not ransom, not revenge. Complete takeover. Lila continued, voice trembling. "And someone close to me, someone I trusted, helped them. They planned everything." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I should have told you earlier, but I was scared. I didn't know who to trust." Shadow rested his head on her chest, sensing her pain. Aaron grabbed her hand firmly. "You can trust me. You hear me? I'm not leaving you." Lila's voice cracked with emotion. I'm just so tired, Aaron." Her head began to droop. No, stay with me," Aaron urged. He looked at her paling face and realized something terrifying. This wasn't just exhaustion. This wasn't just fear. Lila was fading, and they needed help. Fast. Snow hammered against the windshield as Aaron raced toward the nearest town, praying Lila would hold on. Her breaths were faint now, barely lifting her chest. Shadow stayed pressed against her, trying to keep her warm, whining every few seconds as if begging her to stay awake. "Aaron," she whispered weakly. "I'm right here," he said, voice trembling despite his effort to sound calm. "No," she breathed. "Don't blame yourself if I don't make it." Aaron's heart clenched. "Stop, you're going to be just fine." But even he heard the desperation in his own voice. Shadow barked, short, sharp, his warning that time was running out. Finally, glowing lights appeared through the heavy snowfall. The small-town hospital came into view. Aaron skidded into the emergency lane, jumped out, and tore the door open. He scooped Lila into his arms and ran through the sliding doors. "Help! She's going into hypothermia," he shouted. Doctors rushed to him instantly. 2 nurses took Lila from his arms, laying her on a stretcher. Shadow followed, but Aaron grabbed his collar gently. "Let them work, buddy. Let them work." They wheeled her quickly down the hall. Her head rolled to the side, eyes half closed. Before she disappeared around the corner, she whispered one fragile word: "Shadow." Then she was gone behind the emergency doors. Aaron stood frozen in the hallway, chest heaving. The cold from outside still clung to him, but the fear inside was sharper, colder. Shadow sat beside him, ears low, staring at the door where Lila had vanished. Minutes felt like hours. Every distant beep, every rushed footstep made Aaron tense. He paced back and forth, replaying everything, every warning, every moment he almost lost her on the highway, every secret she confessed. Then, a familiar voice echoed down the hall. "Aaron Miller." He turned. A tall man in an expensive suit strode toward him, 2 bodyguards behind him. His face was pale, worried, desperate. "I'm Charles Everton," the man said quickly, "Lila's father." Aaron's breath caught. He straightened automatically. "Sir, she's inside. They're treating her." Charles nodded, fighting back emotion. "I flew here the moment security picked up the distress signal from the SUV, but I had no idea." His voice broke. "I had no idea my daughter would almost die." Shadow stepped protectively in front of Aaron, sensing the stranger's intensity. Charles's eyes softened. "This must be the dog that saved her." "He did," Aaron said quietly, "more than once." Before Charles could reply, the ER doors opened. A doctor stepped out, removing his gloves. "She's stable," he said. "It was close, but she's going to recover." Aaron exhaled so hard his knees nearly buckled. Shadow let out a low, relieved whine and wagged his tail for the first time since the cabin. The doctor added, "She's asking for you. Both of you." Charles looked at Aaron in surprise. "She wants you?" Aaron nodded softly. "She trusts us." Charles looked at him for a long moment, then said something that would change everything. "Captain Miller, whatever you did for my daughter, I can never repay, but I'm going to try." And with that promise, Aaron knew. The night's horror had led them into a future none of them expected. Aaron followed the doctor into the dim hospital room. Machines hummed softly and warm lights glowed above Lila's bed. She looked fragile but alive. Her cheeks held a hint of color again, and her breathing was steady. Shadow rushed forward first, gently placing his paws on the edge of the bed. Lila's tired eyes lit up. "Shadow," she whispered, stroking his head with weak fingers. "You saved me. Again." Aaron stepped closer. "You scared us," he said softly. Lila gave a faint smile. "You didn't leave me. You stayed, when everyone else would have run." Before Aaron could respond, the door opened. Charles Everton entered slowly, his expression a mix of relief, guilt, and overwhelming gratitude. For a moment he simply looked at his daughter, tears forming in his eyes. Then he turned to Aaron. "Captain Miller," he began, voice thick with emotion, "I owe you more than words could ever cover." Aaron shook his head. "Sir, I did what anyone would—" "No," Charles interrupted firmly. "You did what no one else could. You risked your life, and your partner's life, to protect my daughter. If you hadn't found her tonight, she would have died in the snow." Shadow barked softly as if agreeing. Charles stepped closer and placed a hand on Aaron's shoulder. "I don't give thanks lightly, and I don't forget loyalty." Aaron cleared his throat. "I didn't help her for a reward." "I know," Charles replied. "That's exactly why you deserve one." He reached into his coat and handed Aaron an envelope. Inside was a legal document, thick, sealed, and stamped with Everton Holdings' crest. Aaron frowned. "What is this?" Lila looked at her father with a tired but warm smile. "Dad, you didn't." Charles nodded. "I did." He looked at Aaron. "It's a deed to a ranch, 200 acres outside the city, fully furnished, fully paid off. It's yours." Aaron stared, stunned. "Sir, I can't accept that." "You can," Charles said calmly. "And you will." He gestured to Shadow. "That dog saved my only child. He deserves a place to run, to live freely, and you deserve peace, a future." Tears stung Aaron's eyes, something he rarely felt. "That's not all," Charles continued. "I've also arranged for a lifetime monthly pension for you, and a special medical fund for Shadow. Whatever he needs, training, treatment, anything, it will be covered." Aaron felt his breath catch. Lila smiled softly. "You saved my life, Aaron. Let us give you yours back." Shadow nudged Aaron's hand as if telling him to accept. Aaron finally whispered, "Thank you. Both of you." And for the first time that night, the weight on his shoulders began to lift. Spring arrived slowly that year, melting the snowbanks one by one. Birds returned to the sky, the fields turned green again, and the quiet ranch on the outskirts of the city finally began to feel like home. Aaron stood on the porch, watching Shadow sprint across the open land with more joy than Aaron had ever seen in him. The dog bounded through tall grass, barking at butterflies, rolling in dirt, living a life he never knew he deserved. Aaron smiled. "You earned this, buddy." The wind carried the faint smell of blooming wildflowers. For the first time in a long time, Aaron felt something settle inside him. Peace. A feeling he had forgotten during years of deployments, rescues, and chaos. He leaned on the railing, thinking back to the night of the storm, the highway, the cabin, the attacks, Lila's fading heartbeat in his arms, the chase on ice. It felt like a lifetime ago, yet every moment was carved into him permanently. Just then, Shadow paused mid-run, ears perked. He turned toward the driveway and barked once, excited, not alarmed. Aaron followed Shadow's gaze. A sleek black sedan rolled up the ranch path, its tires crunching softly against the gravel. The door opened, and out stepped a familiar figure in a soft, cream-colored coat, her hair blowing gently in the spring wind. Lila. Even now, months later, seeing her drew a tight warmth into Aaron's chest. She was stronger, healthier, glowing in a way she hadn't been the night. He found her in the snow. Her smile, soft, grateful, lit up her whole face. Shadow sprinted toward her like a shot of lightning. Lila laughed, crouching down as he nearly knocked her over with affection. "Shadow, easy," she giggled, hugging him. Aaron walked over, unable to hide the smile on his face. "You spoil him," he teased. "He saved my life," Lila replied gently. "He deserves all the spoiling in the world." Their eyes met, holding quietly for a moment that neither of them broke too quickly. "How have you been feeling?" Aaron asked softly. "Better," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Much better. The doctors say my recovery is going well." "And your family?" Aaron asked. Lila's smile faded slightly, not from sadness but from thought. "We found out who planned it," she said quietly. "A business partner, someone my father trusted, someone who wanted control of everything." Aaron nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "Don't be. I'm alive because of you. And Shadow." Shadow barked as if accepting credit. They walked toward the ranch fence, the afternoon sun casting warm light across the land. Lila inhaled deeply, admiring the view. "It's beautiful here. Peaceful." "That's what I needed," Aaron said. "What Shadow needed, too." She looked at him. "I'm glad you accepted the ranch." He chuckled. "Your father didn't give me much of a choice." "That's because he knew you wouldn't take anything unless he insisted," she replied. They stopped at the fence, watching Shadow chase a squirrel that had absolutely no intention of being caught. Leila's voice softened. You know, every night I prayed someone would find me, but I never imagined it would be you. A stranger, a soldier, someone who didn't owe me anything. Aaron's jaw tightened, emotion flickering in his eyes. You weren't just someone to save, Lila. You were someone who deserved a chance. Her expression melted into gratitude, deep, sincere, overwhelming. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. You didn't just save my life, Aaron. You gave me a new one. The breeze stilled, as if the world paused to hear her words. Aaron looked at her for a long moment. And you changed mine, he said. Shadow trotted between them, tail wagging, nudging both with gentle insistence as if telling them the moment needed to be shared. Lila laughed. He wants us closer. Maybe he knows something we don't, Aaron replied. She met his gaze again. Maybe he does. They stood together, side by side, watching the sun dip toward the horizon. A soldier who thought his life had already been written. A woman who was never supposed to survive. And the dog who brought them together. 3 lives intertwined by a storm, danger, and fate. Lila touched Aaron's hand gently. Aaron, can I visit again? Asked softly. He smiled. You don't have to ask. Shadow barked happily, as if sealing the promise, and just like that their lives began a new chapter, one filled with warmth, healing, and a future none of them could have predicted. A future saved by courage, guided by loyalty, and bound forever by an unforgettable night in the snow.